this meeting of the Santa Barbara Airport Commission for Wednesday, December 16th, 2020. The first item on our list is a ceremonial item. Director Thompson.
Yes, sir. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank Commissioner Karen Kahn for her many years of dedicated service at the Santa Barbara Airport Commission. In recognition, we have a plaque that is appropriately marked for the current period of service because she's had multiple periods of service. And we'd like to present that to Commissioner Kahn today. And Mo is holding up the plaque, and it's duly annotated with the appropriate dates for the current term.
Thank you. Cool plaque.
It's very cool.
It's been a pleasure to have served, and I hope that some of my expertise has been helpful, and happy to offer any ideas or thoughts in the future if they are ever in need.
I'd like to say thank you very much, Karen, for all of that you've done and how many ever years it's been, going back to 1980s, was it?
First
87?
term was 87 to 91.
So all of your many times and all of the support you've given me as I first came on the commission. It's been a pleasure working with you.
Ditto.
Well, I'm going to miss your smile. I'm going to miss your calm demeanor. I'm going to miss the depth of your knowledge. And it has certainly been an honor for me to be able to serve with you. I'll miss you.
Why, thank you.
Thank you for your service and hard work to make the airport a better place. Your knowledge of airline work will be greatly missed.
Well, it looks like Henry's off to a great start of getting us somebody new and desired ever since I can recall. So I'm looking forward to using it, as well as continuing to use the airport myself as a GA user, because I think what makes the airport work is that we have both, and we have everybody working toward what we want, which is a profitable, well-run airport that serves everybody.
And this is Craig. I'll add Santa Barbara Airport, Captain Kahn, thank you for your service. We look forward to working with you in the future. Santa Barbara ATC, over and out.
Why, thank you.
Hey, Karen, it's Dennis. And I just want to thank you for just your help over the last couple of years, your many nuances, our little sidebar conversations and what we do and why we do it. And just those little comments you would help me with, and this is why we do X and not Y, and your history with the airport. You know, I got to attend your, above all, your Master Pilot Award at Santa Barbara Historic Terminal in March. And when I saw that turnout and I looked at the faces in your audience, and these are all mostly young people. Lynn Houston, of course, was there organizing it, and Angie Doss, but the crowd in that room, they all showed this, they held you in awe. They just look at you as such a role model and such an inspiration. And that I really gathered that, and I thought, boy, we were so fortunate to have you on our airport commission. So thank you for your service.
Well, I want to thank Henry for his allowing us to use the historic terminal and all the staff. I think it went off very well, and I think the timing was marvelous, since of course that was the 3rd of March, and thereafter, of course, there would not have been the ability to do that. So my special thanks to you, Henry, for making that possible. And I think, you know, also showing, you know, those who were there, that the airport is more than just airplanes, it's people. And that's what really makes it run. So, you know, we hope that they will continue to see it as one of their greatest resources, you know, in times of fun, business, in times of hardship, in times of, disaster relief. I flew a plane up to actually went to Reed Hillview with about 800 masks in my airplane back in September for the mask airlift, because there's a lot of good we can do aside from just some of the, more, should we say, vacation type aspects or business type aspects of flying. Lot we can offer. Thank you all.
And with that, we would like to have the roll call, please, Maureen.
Commissioner R. Curry,
I am here.
okay. Commissioner Houghton,
Present.
Commissioner Wilson,
I am here.
Commissioner Khan,
One last time, yes, here.
Vice Chair Bowen,
Present.
Chair Hopkins,
Here.
and we have a quorum.
Next item, Director Thompson, are there any changes to the agenda?
No, sir, there are no changes to the agenda.
Okay, before we get into the notices, I would like to make a brief comment. I'd like to congratulate the airport staff, the city staff, Visit Santa Barbara, and everybody else who had a role in acquiring Southwest Airlines service here to the city. It's been something that people have been wanting for a very long time. There's been a lot of effort, and I think everybody here and everybody listening and a whole lot of people who will just read about it tomorrow morning are going to be extremely excited about that. So congratulations to you all. And with that, we'll go to notices that on Thursday, December 10th at 5 p.m., the Airport Commission Secretary duly posted the agenda on the bulletin board at the Airport Administration. The next item up, item number 2, is public comment. Any member of the public may address the Airport Commission on any subject within the jurisdiction of the Commission that is not scheduled before them this day. The total amount of time is 15 minutes. No individual may speak for more than 3 minutes. Maureen, do we have anyone who wishes to make a general public comment?
Members of the public, if you wish to make a public comment on a matter that is not on the agenda, please click the raised hand icon on the control panel. This will tell me that you wish to speak. Chair Hopkins, it appears that we have one raised hand, and it is Wayne Morris.
Okay, Wayne Morris, please go ahead. You have 3 minutes.
Mr. Norris, if you will unmute yourself, you can begin speaking. Mr. Morris, I see your raised hand and I have unmuted you. You can unmute yourself.
Hey, okay, can you hear now?
There you go.
Oh, great, thank you. Are you looking at me?
No, we can only hear you.
Okay. That's fine. Then I don't have to worry about calling my hair. I am a member of the Flying Club, and I understand that there's a question about whether the Flying Club is going to be able to continue in the same way that they have been before. And very, very briefly, I was an instructor. I haven't been flying this year because of COVID, but I was an instructor with the UCSB Flying Club in 1976. I formed a flying school. I kind of got the pointy end of the Airport Commission's boot. This is about 40 something years ago. I founded a flying club instead. We called it the Greater Goleta Valley Storm Door and Airplane Club to take advantage of the Jonathan Winters comedy trope that was going around. And ultimately, we were able to turn it into Part 135. And I think it was a grand tradition. We trained about 75 students. A lot of them fly airlines. Karen, I believe, actually did a little instruction for us a couple of hours one time to help us out. And it was just absolutely wonderful for everybody. And just, I have a 40-year-old son who I took in the back seat of my, we had an Aerostar 601P we used at a Part 135. And, you know, I would always ask the passengers if they minded if I took my redheaded 9-month-old, and of course they said yes. So he got a lot of hours that way. And I really think that's American aviation the way it started, and American aviation is a very multifaceted.
Mr. Morris, you seem to have dropped off, but I think we might want to end this. There is an item on the agenda, item number 5, I believe it is, that is a specific, I'm sorry, item number 7, that is a specific discussion on flying clubs, flight schools, and independent instructors, and that is the appropriate place for your comments on this subject. So if we can hold this at this point, but you're more than welcome to come back and on item 7 and make your comments. Maureen, is there anybody else who has raised their hand?
There are no other raised hands.
Thank you. Liaison reports. Do we have either of our liaisons here with us? Mr. Frieden? Oops, I saw somebody pop up, but no. Neither one of them are logged on. Can you tell, Maureen?
I don't have either one of them logged in at this point.
Okay, we'll go on to item number 4, which is the director's report. Director Thompson?
Good evening, commissioners. As you have heard throughout the media today, Southwest Airlines officially announced their intent to serve Santa Barbara. This is exciting news and is the result of extremely hard work that has been underway for some time, with discussions increasing over the past couple of months. Staff has been working closely with our partners at Visit Santa Barbara and the Chamber to present a compelling proposal that was well received by the airline. This is truly a game changer for our airport and comes at just the right time. Specific routes and frequency and schedules, as well as the exact launch date, will be announced in late January, so there's more information to come. But for now, we celebrate Southwest Airlines' intent to serve the South Coast, and we're now headed for their route map. We were one of the we're one of the destinations that they had at the top of their priority list for some time. They did not have service between San Jose and Burbank, so we fit nicely into that route map. So we're very excited about this service and look forward to new routes and destinations to be named in the future. The airport remains open and operating 24/7 despite the current stay-at-home order from the state. As an essential service, staff throughout the airport are still working and have been since the beginning of the pandemic in March. Administrative offices continue to be open for business by appointment only. As anticipated, we have seen further reduction in travelers the past week for the Thanksgiving holidays as the community complied with the stay-at-home order. However, we're very optimistic about continuing to see the incremental week-over-week growth that we have been seeing. And I do just want to share that the airport hasn't gone unscathed by this virus. We have seen approximately 15 positive cases throughout the airport community. And we're being very careful how we do our work. But we are essential workers and we're out there on the front line, keeping the airport open 24/7. On December the 8th, the Santa Barbara City Council approved the appointment of Ms. Cassandra Reed as our newest airport commissioner. Mr. Craig Arcuri was also approved for another term. We welcome Ms. Reed to the commission and welcome Mr. Arcuri back. As we stated earlier, Commissioner Karen Kahn will end her term at the end of the month, and we thank her for her many years of dedicated service. I'm pleased to announce that Jonathan Abad has joined the airport team as the Business Services Manager. Jonathan joins us from the City of Finance, or the city's finance department, where he worked for more than 12 years as a financial analyst. He is well suited to take on the more broader financial responsibilities at the airport, and we're happy to have him here. Jonathan is already busy picking up the development of our 2022-2023 budget preparation, which is well underway, as well as our CIP program. And then finally, it is with mixed feelings that I announced the retirement of Jeff McKee, Airport Facility Manager. Jeff has been with the airport for nearly 20 years and has been dedicated to ensuring we have the highest quality facilities and systems. He's led his team in maintaining our airport in accordance with federal requirements that permitted us to maintain our airport operating certificate. He also managed a portfolio of significantly aging infrastructure in which he and his team kept in leasable condition to support our airport revenue streams. So many, many thanks to Jeff. We wish the very best for Jeff in his future endeavors, whatever those may be. He hasn't shared that with us yet, but we're sad to see him go, but we're excited for him all at the same time. And as for Jeff's position, the airport facility manager role, we'll be posting that position shortly and hope to find someone as talented as Jeff himself. But in the interim, I think we're in good hands. Pete Concepcion, our airport maintenance supervisor, will be stepping up, and so we should be in pretty good hands for now. And with that, do we have any comments from Mr. McKee?
No comments. Just it's been a privilege to serve, and thanks for the 20 years. It's been a adventure, new terminal, runway shift, and now we're moving on to Southwest. So exciting things to come. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff.
Kudos, Jeff.
Anything, Aaron, for you?
Nothing at this point, no.
Okay. And Deanna, anything to add?
Pleasure to work with you, and thanks for all that you've done for the airport. Congratulations and have a happy retirement.
We'll miss you, Jeff.
Thank you, Jeff. We really appreciate all you've done.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. It's you're a miracle worker keeping all those buildings in usable and leasable condition.
Thanks, Carl.
Okay, Deanna, anything for the director's report?
Just to say that the report itself is pretty short this month, and that was because the largest focus of what we've been doing, we haven't been able to write about. And of course, we didn't receive word about the fruits of our effort until yesterday. So it's been a busy and exciting time.
Thank you. And that concludes the director's report.
Do any of the commissioners, if you do have questions or comments, please raise your hand. We'll start with Commissioner Curry.
Yeah, just my thanks to Jeff as well. I didn't get that in there. And I've always heard retirement, you're busier than when you weren't retired. So whatever you're doing, enjoy. And one of my older daughters played softball with Pete's daughter, and I know Pete's going to do a great job in the interim. So thanks, Jeff, and thanks, Pete. Keep those buildings standing.
Commissioner Bowen.
Yes, also, thanks, Jeff. You've done a great job keeping this old place standing. I'm sure somebody will step in there and work hard, and you will be missed. They'll realize how much you were getting done. But my question was, apparently we've had 15 people catch COVID in the airport community. I'm assuming everybody's recovered and everybody's okay?
That's correct. As far as we know, everyone has recovered. We've not heard anything to the contrary. And that 15 is throughout the entire airport, not just city staff.
Okay, that's great news. And then throwing in a tidbit, I'm not sure if you've noticed that the Goleta Slough has opened up. And so our flooding problems will be greatly mitigated this winter. That's something I think Jeff's well aware of.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that was all I had.
Thank you.
Given the amount of rain we've had or seem to be having, that may not be a problem in either way, but it is nice to know. Anything else? Any other people have comments? Then I will open. Yeah, oh, go ahead, Dennis.
Hey, Carl. I just want to again recognize Henry for his leadership and with the staff, and Deanna and Aaron and Angie with the Southwest effort. I know, Henry, I've been a little thorn in your side on the topic of Southwest. I know we've both been with the airport for 2 years, and I think the first time I met you, we talked about expanding our commercial air service and improving it. And boy, you've done it. I mean, when I think about the past 2 years, we were able to bring Delta and Contour and back and forth with Sun Country and Frontier. Boy, you've had a lot on your plate with commercial air service. And when we realized 90% of our revenue is so important, but to finally get Southwest, I'm just so proud of the staff and how hard everyone's worked. They had plenty of other places to go. And I do realize it was a bit of a pest, comparing populations of cities where they were announcing where they were going and comparing it to our South Coast. We have 700,000 people within 60 minutes of our airport. So this is a wonderful, wonderful thing for our community. So thanks to all the people that work so hard, and we're going to really enjoy flying on Southwest.
Thank you.
Okay, at this point, I will open it for public comments. If anyone in the public has a comment about any of the items discussed here in the director's report, please raise your hand. Maureen, do we have anybody?
Chair Hopkins, there are no raised hands.
At this point, I will close the public comments, and we will go to the consent calendar. The consent calendar has 2 items on it. The first is a recommendation that the Airport Commission waive the reading and approve the minutes of the commission meeting Wednesday, October 21st, and that we waive the reading and minutes of the Commission Budget Subcommittee meeting way back in Wednesday, October 15th. And item number 6 is that we receive the monthly airport property management report. Do any of the commissioners have a comment or any questions on this? If not, then I'll open it for public comment. Are there anybody in the public who wishes to comment on either of these 2 items? Maureen? I think you're muted,
Chair
Maureen.
Hopkins, there are no raised hands.
Thank you. Then at this point, I will entertain a motion to approve the consent calendar?
I so move.
I'll
A
second.
second? Moved by Commissioner Khan, seconded by Commissioner Bowen. We need a roll call for this, do we not? Yes,
Yes.
please, Maureen?
This is a roll call on a motion by Commissioner Khan, seconded by Commissioner Bowen for approval of the consent calendar. Commissioner Arcuri,
Aye.
Commissioner Houghton,
Aye.
Commissioner Wilson,
Aye.
Commissioner Khan,
Aye.
Vice Chair Bowen,
Aye.
Chair Hopkins.
Aye.
The motion was unanimous.
All right, the next item is item number 8, item number 7, which is a summary of flight instruction challenges at Santa Barbara Airport.
Good evening, Commissioners. Item number 7 on tonight's agenda is a staff presentation on outstanding issues surrounding flight instruction at the airport. The purpose of tonight's presentation is to frame all of the issues before you that require resolution. Staff will work on developing solutions to bring before you in the coming year. Discussions of solutions go back 4 years at this point, with the issues not being resolved. The lack of meaningful solutions is not because these are complex issues. They're not. Instead, they are relatively simple issues that have been made unnecessarily complex. And with your support, I'm confident that we will be able to make progress in the next year. And it is important that we do solve these issues that are consuming too much of staff's limited time, creating an environment of unfairness, and exposing the airport to potential compliance issues. So with that, I'll hand it over to Aaron Keller, who will make the presentation. And I just want to be clear, we're framing issues. We're not presenting issues and solutions to you this evening. Aaron?
All right, thank you very much. Henry, good evening, commissioners. It's a pleasure to see your face as always. I will be giving you the presentation tonight on what we believe to be very simple challenges at hand, and look forward to solutions in 2021, and ultimately coming back with a suggestion and a recommendation for the Airport Commission after it goes through the appropriate public comment phase, and then ultimately on to City Council for formal adoption as part of our minimum standards. So with that being said, next slide, please. So again, we have 3 basic business structures on the airport that are providing different various forms of flight instruction for us. Specifically airport flying clubs, airport flight schools, and then independent flight instructors that operate outside of that realm of commercial and or a more formalized business structure. As Henry alluded to, these are very simple challenges that we're facing, but they've gone on unchecked for many years and have created a situation for us that is much larger than we believe it needs to be. So therefore, our resolution in 2021 is to come to some agreement as to what this should look like. And with your support, we will be able to adopt those resolutions. Next slide, please. So very basically, I just want to identify kind of the definition of each of these different forms of businesses. So airport flying clubs, what are they? What do they consist of? They're nonprofit. They are a non-for-profit entity that conducts their operation on the airport with their members. And these are their regular members that are classified by the FAA as those that are part of the club, that, essentially a joint ownership, I would say, of club members that have the enjoyment of sharing an aircraft. Quite basically, that's what we're talking about here. I'm not going to speak to each of these requirements, which you can quite clearly see on the screen here, but these are some of the different requirements that are required of the flying clubs. Next slide, please. So what else is going on with the flying clubs? That one of our Part 13 complaints that we've received from the FAA has identified that there may be an issue with airport flying clubs. So therefore, the airport was put in a position where we needed to conduct an audit of the flying club activity. And one of those audits revealed that half of one of the specific flight clubs on airport is about 50% related to flight training. And that in it of itself is competing unfairly with the flight schools on airport. So therefore they are operating as a de facto flight school per the audit results that we've received. They are a not-for-profit entity, so therefore they should not be competing with our flight schools. And quite frankly, this is putting our flight schools in a difficult position. Next slide, please. So now moving on to flight schools. These are for-profit entities that basically will engage in public flight instruction, and they have many requirements. And one of those requirements that I want to hone in on, as you can see below, is they pay an airport lease-based fee. And that's a very important factor that I want to distinguish between our flying clubs and our flight schools versus our independent flight instructors. Next slide, please. So what else is going on there? One of our flight schools has issued a complaint to the FAA alleging unfair practices, and they are alleging that there is harm to their commercial operation. As an airport, we need to be fair, we need to be reasonable, and we need to be just in our actions and our management of each of these different types of operations. So therefore, we're working diligently with the FAA to come to a resolution. Next slide, please. And so the third form of instruction that takes place on airport is independent flight instruction. This is something that's been going on for various number of years, where we will permit an independent flight instructor to perform flight instruction activity on the airport. This is a program. I can't speak to the history of it, but it's a program that we feel is warranted to continue, and we will continue to support with appropriate requirements. And those requirements are listed below. Next slide, please. So we will say that, utilizing independent flight instructors in their own aircraft is not approved. That is essentially a flight school. So therefore they must use someone else's aircraft, whether that be in a flying club, or if you as your preferred form of instruction is that you have an independent flight instructor provide you instruction in that aircraft, that is certainly allowed, but they are not to use their own airplanes for the purpose of instruction. Next slide, please. So what are we looking forward to in 2021? Well, personally, it's been on my plate since we started the minimum standards update early this year. I'm looking forward to adopting a new airport minimum standards document that not only touches on flight instruction as stated here, but just addresses some of the other deficiencies that we've seen within the document itself. Again, this document will be presented to the public for comment. It will go to Airport Commission and then ultimately City Council for adoption. Beautiful children there. So again, what we assure that we will do is that we will continue to audit and enforce all activity moving forward. We will handle violations fairly, reasonably, and with due process. I am also excited to announce that the airport will be issuing a flight school RFP, as there's been quite a bit of activity as of late, just inquiring as to different levels of instruction that can be provided or different flight schools that could be established on the airport for whatever reason, but we will be moving forward with a flight school RFP. But finally, what we want to assure the commission, what we want to assure the FAA and the city of Santa Barbara and all of our users is that we will be compliant with our FAA grant assurances. That is an absolute requirement that we will honor, and I look forward to moving forward to ensure we can do that into the future. So with that being said, I believe that is my final slide here. Next slide. I think that's it. That is it. So at this time, if there are any questions, we'd be happy to entertain them at this point, and then look forward to hearing any comments.
Thank you very much, Aaron. Nice, concise, and thorough presentation. Very good. Thank you. I'm going to ask that the commissioners this first go around ask questions, then we will have public comment, then we will come back to the commissioners for their comments after having listened to both the presentation and the public's comments. So let us start. If you have a question to Aaron, please raise your hand. Commissioner Khan.
Yes, I'm wondering, Aaron, if you have a proposed timeline in which you're thinking maybe you've got stage 1 occurring by such and such, stage 2, et cetera. Have you got a general outline of what we might expect?
Commissioner Khan, I do not have a timeline before you today. The purpose of the presentation today is really just to lay out where we're moving forward in 2021. I wish I could say everything would be solved by January or February, but as we know, there's a public process to this, and I do not have that time frame to provide to you today.
Are there any deadlines that we should be aware of that you will be working toward? Maybe the FAA saying you have to have an X by Y or anything like that, that is going to be constraining or something that you're going to be working towards?
But what I can tell you is that we have met all FAA required deadlines to date, specific to our Part 13 complaints. At this point, we believe we've satisfied their expectations, and moving forward with the audit and other activities has satisfied their needs.
Thank you.
And let me just add that all of these items are a priority for the airport, and we will be addressing them as we are able to. Unfortunately, we have limited staff resources, and we have a lot of priorities that we have to manage this amount. So that's why we're not prepared to commit to a timeline today. We're simply here to lay out the challenges before you. And the first of the year, we're going to start to figure out how we move forward, and that will include figuring out some type of a timeline.
Anybody else have a question? I thought I saw another. Commissioner Bowen.
Thank you. So I was also going to ask about how long before the RFP, but I understand that that's been asked and we don't know. At this time, how many active flight schools do we have at this airport?
So at this time, we have 1 active flight school and 1 inactive flight school. There are inquiries from, I believe, 2 other parties that are interested in providing flight instruction through a flight school, but 1 at this time.
Thank you. And then as far as the facilities, because we like to rent out buildings, it's a huge part of our revenue. What are we looking at sitting vacant right now, not bringing in rental income while we work on getting this RFP ready?
Commissioner Bowen, I will defer that to Henry or Deanna.
Good evening, Commissioners. I can answer that question. So, as you may know, we had one flight school that ceased operations at the end of October. So that space is currently vacant, and the rental income from that unit was approximately $2,000 a month, a little bit more than that. So that's a vacant space currently.
Okay. Now, we haven't started the move. I'm sorry if I'm branching too much, but I'm trying to get a handle on the vacant rental space. When the move from south side to north side occurs, the building currently occupied by Atlantic will be vacant. Is that one we should consider that would be a potential flight school location?
Well, the question with that space, it's located in a good location, but it's large. It's over 5,000 square feet. So in all likelihood, it is about 3,000 square feet too big for a flight school. So, but it's obviously an opportunity that we could examine if the right candidate came along to use the space.
Okay, so thank you. So we won't consider that space as lost revenue while we work on the RFP?
No.
Okay. Yeah, this is a very troubling issue for everybody. There's a lot of other things. Thank you for continuing to address it. And my personal thoughts is that it's in the airport's interest to have as many proper flight schools paying rent, buying fuel, getting people into flying. It brings money into this airport. So please, all encouragement to move forward on this RFP as possible. It is actually some significant money to the airport. Thank you.
Are there any other questions? Yes, Commissioner Howard.
Yeah, are we looking to bring in a regional or national level flight school, larger corporation behind one of these entities?
So Commissioner Houghton, if I could, you know, the RFP process, I believe will allow us to understand who better is suited to serve the Santa Barbara market. You know, personally, I have attended Part 141 schools through Comair Aviation Academy and others that are now defunct. As the market continues to evolve, the RFP process will allow us to determine exactly what kind of corporate market or local market there is for flight instruction here in Santa Barbara.
Okay, thank you.
And that process will also help us understand the number of flight schools that are appropriate for the airfield as well. So we will be gathering information through that process.
Thank
Any
you.
other commissioners have questions? This time we will open it to public comment. Any member of the public who wishes to make comments on this item will have to raise your hand on the icon there. You will have 3 minutes each, and I will turn it over to Maureen to ask, is there anybody who has raised their hand?
Commissioner Hopkins, currently we have 3 hands raised. We have 4 hands raised. We will start with, okay, we have more hands. We'll start with David Williams, and when he is finished, Jason Lee will be next. David, would you unmute your mic and begin speaking?
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, so I guess my first comment is more of a question. Thank you guys for the presentation today. That was great. If we're working towards regulations in 2021 to try and regulate flight schools, flying clubs, and independent instruction, why is it that there is a letter out there that's going to kick one of the flight clubs off of the airport by December 30th if they don't stop flight instruction, considering that there are currently no regulations against flight clubs offering flight instruction? Am I allowed to get a question answered, or do I have to keep talking?
Mr. Williams, this is public comment, and the whole purpose of public comment is for you to have 3 minutes to say your piece. It's the staff will not be answering questions.
Okay, that's fine. Yeah, so I guess my piece then is that it doesn't sound like this is going to be fair and so in 2021 when you're trying to click Flying Club off the field by the end of the year if they don't stop taking students or teaching their students currently, right? I think that the letter said that we had to transfer them to the flight school on the field by December 30th or they're going to be asked to leave. And I don't believe that aligns with anything that you guys just said in that meeting. So I'm all set.
Thank you very much, Mr. Williams. Next in line, who is that, Maureen?
Jason Lee, if you will unmute your mic.
Thank you. My name is Jason Lee, a resident of Santa Barbara, a member of the Channel City Flyers Flying Club, and a student pilot. Like many in the local aviation community, I am greatly disappointed in the airport administration's order to limit independent flight instruction and forbid instruction in flying clubs for student pilots such as myself. From my understanding, this order effectively begins at the end of the year 2020. My journey into aviation is a recent one. It's only about a year ago that I learned that the pursuit of flight is within the grasp of a person with a modest income. So about 1 year ago, I connected with the only flying school in Santa Barbara that I could get a response from, above all aviation. I began my training and had a few flights, and I honestly had a decent impression of the facilities, planes, and flight instructors. However, one piece of advice I encountered again and again through my online research was to try different flight instructors when starting out. It was about this time, through more online research, I learned there's things called flying clubs, a group where group enthusiasts would share their financial costs of plane ownership, build a community, and yes, a place where someone could potentially learn to fly. Before I go on, I want to be absolutely clear and say none of the flying clubs or independent instructors in Santa Barbara advertised or approached me as being a flight school of any kind. I understood that any instruction would be an agreement directly between an instructor and a student. So some more research led me to discover the Santa Barbara Flying Club and the Channel City Flyers, and I met various members of the local aviation community and eventually met my current independent flight instructor. I was impressed by his experience, temperament, and teaching style, and knew that learning how to fly from him would be the safest and most enjoyable entrance to the world of general aviation. I also understood that learning to fly with an independent instructor would mean that I would miss out on the staff and the resources that the Santa Barbara-based flight school had to offer. Given the risks involved with flying, this was a decision I did not take lightly, but ultimately it was a decision I was willing to make due to my affinity toward this independent instructor. I take you all through my brief history to emphasize the fact that there's no grand scheme of underground flying schools hiding from the law. I imagine that the majority of students who learn to fly in flying clubs around the nation had similar experiences to me. These are people that did their research, found an instructor that they liked, and didn't have the means or will to purchase their own airplane. Which brings us to today. With grant money at stake, I truly sympathize with the predicament that the Santa Barbara aviation community faces. However, it does not change the fact that it's wrong to raise the already high barrier of entry to the world of aviation. The ability to choose an instructor who's imparting abilities that can mean the difference between life and death should not be restricted. I implore that the airport administration and the airport commission not settle for this blunt approach and work toward a solution that does not so heavily curtail the ability of choice for pilots, both present and future. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lee. Who do we have next, Maureen?
Daryl Eaton will be next, and then after Daryl will be Justin Robertson.
Hello, can you all hear me?
Mr. Eaton, go ahead.
Sure. Thank you all for taking this time tonight, and thank you all for listening to all of us. Airport Commission, my name is Daryl Eaton. I'm the secretary of the Santa Barbara Flying Club and a private pilot. I've been a private pilot for 28 years. My father was a Vietnam Navy A-7 pilot. My grandfather, a World War II bomber pilot, so flying is in my blood. Santa Barbara Flying Club has been around for over 70 years. They say it takes an airport to raise a pilot, just like it takes a village to raise a child. And we've been happy to be part of that group that has raised many pilots at this airport. That said, the Santa Barbara Flying Club currently has less than 10% of members as student pilots. I personally have flown with both Above All and club instructors. I have liked them all. I was actually in the Above All simulator the minute the club board received the audit warning from the director's office, and hope to continue to make use of that fantastic training tool. I joined the Santa Barbara Flying Club because I had Cherokee 6 and I could finally fly on my family of 5 places. This was not something that I could do with the Above All rentals. This fall, I took a bunch of friends up to Mammoth for 4 days, a fishing trip. One friend who came up on that trip has 15 hours. He's a lapsed student pilot. He was so excited with that flight that he wanted to figure out what to do next. And I recommended Danny at Above All. As you pointed out, our organizations serve different purposes, and I thought he would be better suited there. I've just taken the position this summer. I've had to quickly come to speed on these issues. From what I see in the regulations for FAA grant airports, clubs are allowed to have student pilots, and per FAA Order 5190.b, we are allowed to compensate instructors. I also see in that regulation that the airport sponsors at federally obligated airports can set limits on the amount of flight instruction that will be performed for compensation. I therefore asked other flying clubs around the state if they had any limit on instruction. I have received three responses so far. The Grand Flying Club, which is in Reading, there's one other flight school in the field. There's no instructor restrictions placed on the clubs. River City Flying Club, Sacramento Executive, 3 other flight schools in the field, no instructor restrictions placed on flying clubs. Aerospacers Flying Club, Santa Monica Airport, 4 other flight schools in the field, no instructor restrictions placed on the clubs. Our purpose is to further the skills of our club pilots in the interest of our safety and the public safety. Restricted instruction will go against that goal. I urge you to work with all parties constructively to come up with an appropriate compromise that is not unnecessarily punitive to the flying clubs in the field, especially when this measure does not seem to be required at other popular training airports. I hope to be able to continue to use all the tools of the airport to progress my flying skills. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Mr. Eaton. Next up is Justin, was that Robertson?
Yes, and after Justin Robertson, Kevin Kastner. Justin, you want to unmute your mic and begin?
Hi, are you able to hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. What worries me, I'm Justin Robertson. I'm a treasurer for Channel City Flyers. As David Williams mentioned, we are possibly having our operating agreement terminated at the end of the year. So we kind of hang in the balance, and I wish the airport staff had talked more about our situation specifically. But further to that, what worries me most about things that are going on at the airport is that we were never given due process in our audit process. We weren't allowed to examine the evidence that was used against us. And several times through our responses, we brought up the fact that the airport staff had incorrect information as to how they were coming up with their numbers on flight instruction occurring in our club. This was really, really difficult for us to understand why we couldn't have a more open conversation and come to a more amicable resolution. As we pointed out many times, the FAA says that the airport operator can limit flight instruction occurring in clubs. We asked the airport to please clarify that and place that limit on flight instruction so that we could comply with it. They refused to answer that question in any specificity. So having 47%, as they accuse us of having, of flight instruction in the club isn't against any rule or regulation. So to come and say that we're out of compliance is not a fair assessment. So that really bothers me. The other thing I wanted to touch on is the request for bid or whatever we're doing for flight instruction. I have no clue why you would want to limit flight instruction in Santa Barbara. The more access that everybody has to instruction, the safer we all are as pilots. You know, we don't get second chances up in the air. If something goes wrong, it's life and death. So access to instruction is the most important thing, and to limit it or prohibit it or make it something that we have to bid each other and make more expensive. I don't have a lot of money. I can't afford a lot of lessons, and you make them more expensive. That is a danger to me, and that really scares me. So I really hope the commissioners will, and the airport staff will, reconsider why they want to make flight instruction happen less at the airport. Thank you for my time.
Thank you very much, Mr. Robertson. Next, I believe, was Mr. Kastner. Is that correct, Marie?
Yes, Mr. Kastner, if you'll please unmute your mic and begin speaking. Mr. Kastner? Okay, I see you've raised your hand again, Mr. Kastner. We're waiting for you to unmute your mic. Okay, your mic is still muted, Mr. Kastner. We're gonna move on to the next speaker and we'll come back to you. The next speaker is Wayne Morris. Mr. Morris, I see you're already unmuted. Would you begin speaking?
Yes, thank you. By the way, it's Norris, not Morris, but Morris was the cat on the TV commercials. Having got my my private pilot's license here 54 years ago, actually 55 years ago, coming up this February at Santa Barbara Airport, brand new tower. Come at it from a pretty long perspective. My first thought is, does the Santa Barbara Airport Commission really want to have a program that looks like a New York taxi medallion? Really? When you have only Ivy League schools, that doesn't necessarily get an educated public for you. You need to have city colleges, you need to have state colleges, you need to have independent tutors, you need to have all ways to access education. Now, safety, insurance, they're non-negotiable, of course. Not even, I mean, I just wanted to draw that line there, but I didn't make that comment up beforehand. While I was listening to the discussion, it sounded very much like a New York taxi medallion system. I ran a flying school. I chose not to be a 141. 141 was brand new when we did it. I found it was, kind of expensive. It was expensive for us to put the curricula together. I didn't think that it was suitable for all of the students because, when I took them on their preparatory cross country, by golly, we wrung them out. That wasn't part of the 141 stuff. I would prefer to be able to allow as much access as possible. Now, you said that you had a very large building. Wow. I wonder if maybe there shouldn't be a requirement that each one of the independent flight instructors have a desk there. That's probably a really good idea that allowed them to share resources, and then they could go ahead and move on to the larger flying school. Nobody's going to be getting Cherokee 6s or Saratogas or Twins or anything like that as a club. That's really going to be something that flying schools do. And when you actually get down to it, we were a flying school. I'll bet you 40% of the hours on our aircraft were instruction anyway. Now, de facto flying school, that is the nature of the game of private aviation and single engine piston propeller airplanes. That just, people are instructing all the time. They're doing currency. It's not like they're flying 12-hour flight hops to, Europe and back. That's big time, big guy, big iron. So I'm all for, let the little guy do it. Let 1,000 airplanes fly. Let's get everybody that we can flying. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Norris. Maureen, who do we have up next?
I want to check back in with Kevin Kastner. Have you found your mic icon? It should be on your control panel. It's red right now. If you could click on it, it will turn green and you can begin speaking. Okay, he's currently showing offline. So Vince Merstick, would you unmute your mic? And Mr. Norris, would you please mute your mic? Vince, begin speaking when you're ready.
Can you hear me, everybody, now?
Yes, we can hear you.
Thank you. In the fall of 2016, the Federal Aviation Agency issued a policy intended to assure that all airport users, including those jointly owning aircraft via flying clubs, may receive flight training from independent certified flight instructors. In order to comply with this policy, Santa Barbara minimum standard requirements were revised to explicitly allow flight training by independent CFIs. By implementing the FAA's policy, Santa Barbara qualifies to receive grant funds from the federal government, provided that a number of requirements are honored, including the following. Number one, operate the airport for the use and benefit of the public and make it available for all types, kinds, and classes of aeronautical activity, i.e., allow for independent service providers. Number two, not grant exclusive rights that deprive the public of the benefits that flow from competition, i.e., not permit flight schools to suppress the public's utilization of independent flight instructors. Number three, ensure the opportunity for newcomers to offer aeronautical services that best fit the market demand for such services, i.e., permit independent instructors to service users who desire their unique offering. To date, Santa Barbara Airport users have faithfully honored the above requirements, and federal airport grant funds have continued to be dispersed to the city of Santa Barbara. On November 30th of this year, Airport Director Henry Thompson issued a notice of intent to suspend in order to cease and desist to the Channel City Flyers Club. This order by Mr. Thompson is without merit and is in conflict with the FAA requirements above. As such, if allowed to stand, it will seriously jeopardize the federal grant funding enjoyed by Santa Barbara. In addition, it will likely compel the city to defend against lawsuits brought forth by legitimate airport users who are denied access to the airport. As a tax-paying resident of Santa Barbara, I strongly object to recklessly losing federal grant money and bearing city legal expenses attempting to defend the indefensible. I respectfully request that the mayor and city council investigate Mr. Thompson's management of the airport and consider alternatives. Thank you.
Thank you, Vince. Who is next on the list, Maureen?
I'll go back to Mr. Kastner. It looks like he is still offline, and Chair Hopkins, there are no other raised hands.
Okay, then given that, I will close public comment. We will now go to airport commissioner comments.
Hello, can you not hear me?
Who's speaking?
This is Kevin Kastner.
Great, we can hear you.
Thank you. Sorry to be late. If you'll allow me to speak, I'll be as brief as I can. I had to reinstall on a different computer. I don't know what the problem was, but thank you for the moment to speak. My name's Kevin Kastner. I'm a Santa Barbara resident. I'm a private aircraft owner and a private pilot for 20 years. Thank you for the opportunity to speak on the issue of flying clubs and flight instruction at Santa Barbara. And congratulations on bringing in Southwest. That's good news. So congratulations. First, I'll just speak to my local relevant SBA experience. After a hiatus of several years of not flying, I so wisely chose to get back into flying at the beginning of 2020, just in time for the pandemic. As I began checking out ways to get back into aviation, I didn't own the aircraft at the time. I was looking for a very specific airframe that I wanted to learn to fly and rekindle my passion for general aviation. And of course, I was then going to look for an aircraft and find a place to call home for my home base airport. I chose one of the clubs, specifically the Channel City Flyers Club, for the specific aircraft that they had as a part of the club, and I began the process of buying into the club. And simultaneously, I had to navigate getting a medical during the beginning days of COVID and locating a CFI and getting my BFR, my biannual flight review. And these steps were processes that were all independent, as others spoke to, doing your research and figuring out which way to go. And as most aviation processes go, it was a mix of personal research and, of course, word of mouth. I met with both of the clubs on the field, got to know some of the community, and have continued to, have good camaraderie with the pilots on the field and from different clubs and independent owners as well. The point I want to point out here is that I take issue really with this audit result that I don't think it's been entirely factual and it's being somewhat ramrodded by the airport manager. And the flight school appears to have some sort of personal grudge with independent CFI, specifically, I think, with Channel City Flyers. But just for clarity, I'm no longer a member of the club. I joined the club. I paid in. I flew for a while. I got a little bit of independent instruction. And then I discovered an aircraft for sale, bought my own plane, got some instruction at another private CFI off of the SBA. But based on this whole approach to this and the conflict and all the challenges, I just want to make it clear to the commission that, you know, I have actively chosen and made a conscious decision not to spend my money at SBA as a result of this behavior and this antagonistic attitude towards flying clubs. And frankly, it feels a bit hostile towards GA pilots in general. Just the behavior of the airfield and restrictions and limitations just seem a bit much. So just so you know, I chose to house my airplane on a different airfield. I don't land at SBA. I don't rent or purchase storage at SBA. And I live 5 minutes from the airfield. And I have chosen not to participate in SBA based on this current behavior. So I just hope you'll reconsider, challenge those findings within the audit, engage in dialogue with the members and other GA pilots before jumping to any decision. And I know you're doing your due diligence. So I just want to say I appreciate your time and consideration on this matter, and hope that you'll look a little deeper. And that's all I have for now. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kestner. Now I will close for the second time.
Chair Hopkins, there is one more hand raised now.
Okay, go ahead. Who is that?
Robert Rockmaker. Mr. Rockmaker, if you'll unmute your mic and begin speaking.
Thank you, commissioners. My name is Robert Rockmaker. I'm the president and CEO of the Flight School Association of America. I'm also an accredited airport executive, AAE. I think Henry Thompson probably understands what that stands for. And I spent over 10 years in commercial service airport management prior to moving forward in my career. And I applaud you for first having these very important conversations. I will simply say, number one, operating and running a flight school is a very big challenge. There are very varied expenses that I'm not going to get into this evening. And when you compare a full business model flight school to a flying club or an independent flight instructor who really has very little overheads, there is a significant difference in the financial modeling. And when a flight school has to meet minimum standards at an airport, and I'm not familiar with your minimum standards per se, but I think the FAA does permit the airport sponsor to set up minimum standards in order to establish fair and equitable pricing scenarios for all of the users. And certainly a airport that receives federal AIP, as Mr. Thompson knows, does have to be open to the public, and Santa Barbara is open to the public. But just like airports today can charge Uber and other ground transportation companies, your commission needs to make surplus in order to operate your M&O budget and your capital budget and so forth. And I would encourage you to, continue to move forward with this project with due diligence. I do not believe that your federal grants are in jeopardy at this point. I'm not an attorney. Again, I'm with the trade association here, but it is not easy to run a flight school and do all of the things you have to do successfully with safety and so forth. So with that, I'm very pleased that I had an opportunity to at least say hello this evening, and best wishes as you continue down this pathway. By the way, flying clubs, there is a place for flying clubs. There's no question, renting aircraft possibly is something that flying clubs do well, especially in Europe. But there's a lot that goes into flight training to make a pilot these days. And good flight schools are hard to find, and you have some really good ones on your field. So thank you very much. and best wishes as you go down the runway here. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rockmaker. Maureen, has anybody else got their hand up?
Chair Hopkins, there are no more raised hands.
Okay, so once again, I will close this to public comment and we will go to airport commissioner comments. If you have a comment, please raise your hand and I will call on you. Commissioner Bowen.
Thank you. As we discussed earlier, we have only one flight school operational at this time. And it is my belief that with only one flight school operational, with a delay before we're going to have a process completed to properly bring in more flight schools, if you so decide to have more than one flight school, that efforts to immediately shut down other flight instruction makes the Santa Barbara Airport appear to have a conflict of interest there. It makes it look like we're favoring a flight school, even if we're not. So I encourage us to make sure that we do appropriate actions to dispel that and reassure people that we are keeping this airport open to all legitimate users, whether it's flight training, flying in on an airline, checking, getting a charter. And I encourage you to maximize your revenue at this airport in every way you can, even if it's through flight schools, and avoid expensive litigation if it is at all possible. Thank you. That's the end of my comments.
Anybody else have a comment? I have some comment / question, I guess, probably directed to Aaron. I was aware of the various issues with the Channel City Flying Club prior to this. I think there were some emails that concerned that, including the cease and desist order and the letter back from their attorney, etc. So I came into this meeting with not real positive thoughts. But after listening to your presentation, Aaron, I thought it was very positive. It was an excellent presentation. And as I understood it to be a list of the issues that we're faced with right now and a plan for in 2021, as you have time to address each and every one of these issues through a open public process, resulting in changes to the minimum standards. That seems to be in conflict with what I'm hearing and have seen as an immediate cease and desist order, and then by the end of the month for one of the flying clubs. So that's my comment and question. Could you explain the difference, the dichotomy that I see there?
So I'll certainly take a stab at it, Chair Hopkins. What I can tell you is that as a result of the audit, it was found that the current flying club that is at hand was creating an unfair competition with the existing flight school. And per the FAA, the existing flight club that we're talking about is not to compete with the flight school. So therefore, because of the amount of instruction that was being performed, that cease and desist letter was issued. Beyond that, everything else will be discussed through litigation if necessary. I certainly hope it doesn't have to go to that point, but that is the airport's current stance on the matter, and we hope they come into compliance with the requests that were issued within the letter.
And let me just add to that, if you would. First and foremost, I do not want to get into discussing details of the Channel City Flyer matter. There is potential litigation involved there. But what I will share with you is staff spent the entire year of 2020 working on and attempting to resolve matters with Channel City Flyers. Ample opportunities were extended to try to come up with cooperative solutions to address the issues that were identified. Unfortunately, we did not come to an agreement on how to resolve the issues that were identified, and it's come to what it's come to. But I will not get into the details of the letter or where that issue is headed, given the potential legal ramifications.
Thank you. I will just close my comment with, I am certain that the airport will, and I certainly hope they will do everything possible to avoid litigation, to work to resolve this in a matter suitable to all, and we'll leave it at that. No other comments? Then we will go on to item 8, which is a lease agreement. I suspect that's yours, Deanna.
Yes, good evening, Chair Hopkins, the rest of the commissioners. So this is a very straightforward lease agreement, and it's a short-term agreement, so I don't have a presentation for you this evening. It is a yard tenant, so in other words, it is literally a 5,000 square foot piece of unimproved land. It is roughly over in the vicinity of the airport's offsite parking lot. And that will be leased for a 1-year period of time. That is, the tenant is already occupying that piece of property for an additional year for a monthly rent of $850. Paysage is a tenant that has been at the airport for many, many years, both with office space and yard space. They are a landscaping company. They have reduced space recently, but this is a piece of property that they would like to retain for support of their landscaping business. So we would very much appreciate approval of this 1-year lease agreement with Paysage.
Thank you very much. Any of the commissioners have questions or comments? Hearing none, I will open it for public comment. Maureen, do we have anybody who has raised their hand to comment on this issue?
Members of the public, if you want to comment on the issue, please use the raised hand icon. And Chair, I don't see any raised hands.
Thank you very much. I will close public comment at this time. And the recommendation is to approve and authorize. Do I have a motion to that effect?
I'll make a motion.
So,
Moved by Commissioner Houghton. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Seconded by Vice Chair Bowen. We need a roll call, please.
This is a motion by Commissioner Dennis Houghton, second by Commissioner Bowen, for the Airport Commission to approve and authorize the airport director to execute a 1-year lease agreement with Paysage, a California corporation, for 5,000 square feet of unpaved land at 160 Frederick Lopez Road at the Santa Barbara Airport, effective January 1, 2021, for a monthly rental of $850. Commissioner Arcuri.
Aye.
Commissioner Houghton.
Aye.
Commissioner Wilson.
aye.
Commissioner Khan.
Aye.
Vice Chair Bowen.
Aye.
Chair Hopkins.
Aye.
The motion was unanimous.
Just before we will adjourn, I'll ask each of the commissioners, is there anything you would like to, Director Thompson, to put on the January agenda? Hearing none, I declare our meeting is adjourned. Thank you all very much, and we'll see you in January.
Well, I trust that you